So, we will be recording this again. Why did I say it like that? Anyway, yeah, the first time I had a hard time getting the audio levels right, and so we're trying again, specifically with the music. And I need to speak a little bit louder. Anyway, I adjusted some things, so hopefully this will be better. Right, so we begin our story today at Bob Jones University in Greenville, South Carolina, a staple of American fundamentalist in Christian education, and nearing its 100th anniversary. Founded in 1927 by evangelist Bob Jones. He was an Alabama native, but the college was founded in Florida before moving to Tennessee during the Depression, and finally moving to Greenville, South Carolina after the Second World War. And our topic today, well, is one I talk about it less and it keeps me up at night more. And seems every week now I'm going back to it going like, this is wild. Man. Anyway, we will be getting to that shortly. Now, turns out that universities like to do these things called honorary degrees, where they give a degree to someone who didn't really do anything at all. You just be well liked by folks and you'll get a degree. And many universities do this, including Bob Jones. Bob Jones has given honorary degrees to many notable individuals, many Republican politicians and famous pastors or preachers. A few names that are more familiar to the common public than others, and here are a few of them. First, we have Billy Graham, probably the most famous preacher in common memory in the world. His story with Bob Jones deserves a video itself, but we could talk about that another time. Then we have Senator Strom Thurmond from South Carolina. His whole story is the stuff of legends, and probably both kinds of legends. And our next honorary degree recipient is a certain Ian Paisley, Northern Irish pastor, politician, unionist, general instigator. He also deserves a video himself. It's funny, my dad told me stories about how Mr. Paisley would come to Bob Jones on occasion to preach in chapel, and how he would always pay more attention to him, more than pretty much anyone else, just because of his accent. So, anyway, there is one name in the list of honorary degree recipients that stands above the rest. That is Chiang Kai-Shek, the Generalissimo of China and leader of the nationalist movement, the Kuomintang, and I guess dictator of Taiwan. He and his wife received honorary degrees from Dr. Bob Jones Sr. himself in 1952. And the whole story behind that is quite unique anyway. And let's first give a little bit of background about Chiang Kai-Shek, though, to maybe put it into context and to, I don't know, enlighten, if we want to use that word. Probably the opposite of enlightened, unfortunately. But you all are going to learn about Warlord period China. this is stuff that keeps me up at night. And see, China in the 20th century. Oh yes, Chiang Kai-Shek smiled a lot. For his pictures. See, one of my favorite parts about making these types of videos is finding all the weird and funny pictures of famous people on the internet. And a common theme among people who might not should be smiling. See, Chiang Kai-Shek, for all his smiles, well, I know he seems like quite the approachable fella, but well, there were a few incidents that do what one might call war crimes. And yeah, it's a common theme among dictators or generalissimos that they tend to smile a lot more than you might think. You'll see what I mean. But anyway, yeah, Chiang Kai-Shek was in a very unstable, to say the least, period of Chinese history. Now, much of Chinese history was unstable. Just look at the Romance of the Three Kingdoms and whatnot, and you'll get the general idea. But just imagine that, but with more people and more guns and bombs and stuff, and weird ideologies. Less of, oh, I want to be emperor. No, I want to be emperor. And more of, I don't want an emperor. I want an emperor, but he's from Japan. What? Oh, we'll get into that in a minute. But this is what China looked like at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the Qing dynasty. And looks pretty nice. Except it actually wasn't. China got straight up abused the last century. Straight up manhandled. And you have the first Sino-Japanese War, you have the Opium Wars, you have the Taiping Rebellion, you have the Boxer Rebellion, and although the Qing had been around for a few hundred years at this point, the Manchu emperors, this map, well, if the interior of China was as stable as this map would portray it to be, things would have been a lot different. And we see in 1913, oh, the color has changed. Now it's a republic, and Mongolia and Tibet are gone. Mongolia and Tibet will come back. Well, Mongolia, that's a story for another day, but yeah, so at the beginning of the 20th century, a revolution happened where the emperor still was there, Emperor Puyi, but he didn't rule anything except his palace, pretty much. And the Japanese would try to prop him up later, but his story is very interesting. But in this time, Chiang Kai-Shek basically helps found the Kuomintang, a revolutionary movement under Sun Yat-sen. And from the beginning, Chiang Kai-Shek is there. He helps a lot with the military aspects of the Kuomintang. But we have a republic now in China. Well, 10 years later, there's a few more names on the map and a few more colors. See, the republic kind of imploded pretty quickly, and I, first of all, don't understand much of what happened, and I'm not going to get into it because there's so many rabbit holes. It's ridiculous. But as we can see, very unstable. And 10 years later from that, this is what China looks like. We have the Kuomintang generally unifying the heartland of China. We have, well, we did have the Fengtian up in the north. Now it is Manchukuo, puppet state of the Empire of Japan. and we have the Soviet Union up to the north, past that, and certain pockets of CSR in the heartland of China. See, the Kuomintang, in defeating these warlords and differing ideologies, some related to each other, some less related to each other, the Kuomintang isolated the communists from their faction, and a civil war developed between the two differing Kuomintang factions. And Chiang Kai-Shek, actually, if I recall, he kind of helped start that. It was quite unnecessary, but I'm not versed enough in how that came to pass to talk much on it. But basically, in the 20s, you have the Warlord period, much outside influence, much chaos, and you have the Chinese Civil War start after the Shanghai incident, I do believe, where Chiang Kai-shek decided, hey, time for a little purge. Yes. Now, this fellow right here, see, one of the many incidents, but one of the most important incidents in this period is called the Chiang incident in 1936. So this fella on the screen, his name is Zhang Shui Liang, and his father was Zhang Zhuolin, who was claimed to be the successor of the Beiyang Republic, and was commander of the Northeastern Army and Fengtian in Manchuria. And see, Zhang Zhuolin kind of got played by the Japanese. I disagree with the logic behind the Japanese decision in this, but eventually, as part of incorporating Manchukuo and instigating the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Japanese decided to assassinate Zhang Zhuolin. I think they blamed the Kuomintang for this. Anyway, they assassinated Zhang Zhuolin, and so his son, Zhang Shuiliang, becomes leader of the Fengtian. He's not getting played by the Japanese at this point. He is very much against the Japanese at this point. When the Japanese do their special military operation in the next few years. And so 1936 is after the start of the Second Sino-Japanese War. And he decides that the best way to handle the situation, because Chiang Kai-shek and the communists, Zhou Enlai and Mao Zedong, are too stupid to stop shooting each other, he decides, hey, I'm going to kidnap Chiang Kai-shek. And that's what he does. And so he decides that kidnapping Chiang Kai-shek was a great idea, and there's Zhuolin, and here are the communists, Mao Zedong in the middle with more hair there, and Zhou Enlai on the left of the screen. And so the communists thinking, wow, we got him. Chiang Kai-shek is ours. Let's just, a little execution in the corner, and Civil War's over. We won. And Civil War probably wouldn't have ended right there, but it would have taken much of a turn if the communists did not receive a call from a certain Big J Joseph Stalin himself. Which, this is so silly to me. There's been debate as to why Stalin did not want Chiang Kai-shek to be killed. He wanted the Kuomintang to be around. Who knows why? There's the later Sino-Soviet split, but For whatever reason, Mr. Mustache Man himself decided that we actually need Chiang Kai-Shek to not get executed in the corner. And so, anyway, slight side tangent there, but one that, as we will see, has a really important effect as to the way Chinese history develops, all thanks to Mr. Mustache Man deciding, hey, I'm going to smile at Chiang Kai-Shek today. I don't need to frown in his direction. He doesn't need to die. Anyway, there's much more that can be said about the Civil War. Much more that I don't know about the Civil War. Much myth and legend concerning the Northern Expedition and the Communists' Long March. But most of common history has decided to focus less on these events and more on the next events, where the Japanese decided, hey, we think China should have an emperor again, except we think he should be from, we think he should be from Tokyo. And so they did their little special military operation, and thing is, this was a bad move, like, in every way from the Japanese. Any war in Asia in this time, they had no chance, like none, like not at all. They went to war only against China. They don't stand a chance. They don't have the resources. They go to war only with Russia. They don't stand a chance. They don't have the manpower or the resources. They go to war like they did in our timeline against China and the Pacific, and then eventually the Soviets. They don't stand a chance. And so anyway, but General Chiang Kai-Shek led the oh yeah, forgot. Because of the kidnapping, Chiang Kai-Shek did unify with the communists to fight the Japanese. And so he is key to defeating the Japanese in East Asia, because much of this is glossed over in American history understanding of the war in the Pacific, but the amount of an absolute grind that Japan was forced to go through they chose to, in China, cannot be understated with the resources and the absolute drain that it put on the Japanese ability to fight war. And so Chiang Kai-Shek did contribute greatly to the Allied war effort. However, after the war in the Pacific against the Japanese, he absolutely blundered, and the Civil War started again, and he lost hard, like so hard that he got kicked out of all of China. They evacuated. He and the remaining nationalists evacuated Taiwan to eventually reclaim China, but they didn't, and they're still waiting. And the Kuomintang and still exists in Taiwan to this day, and Chiang Kai-Shek would be basically a dictator for life in Taiwan for the rest of his time there. And this brings us all the way back around to our story. There's not much I could find online about this event. Honestly, one of the my favorite thing about this whole ordeal is that on Bob Jones' campus in Greenville, South Carolina, in front of the dining hall, there is a big old tree, in a row with some other big old trees, but different big old trees. And there's a plaque in front of that tree that says, This tree was given to Bob Jones University by Generalissimo Chiang Kai-Shek of China. And so he gave us a tree. He gave us a tree for whatever reason. Which is my favorite part of the story. Where I maybe in another video, if I remember, I'll find a picture of the tree. But finding information for this event was hard to do. And we'll get into the biggest source online for this in a moment. But there's this picture that says, well, you can read. But yeah, Dr. Bob Jones Sr. and some other fellows went over to Taiwan in 1952 to give an honorary doctorate to Chiang Kai-Shek in his graduation regalia. My goodness. Now I was trying to think through why this happened, because it's quite strange being the president of a small college in South Carolina meeting with former dictator of all of China. That's pretty strange. Like it it'd almost be like, okay, well, Chiang Kai-Shek was a Methodist. He grew up Buddhist, but he married his fourth wife, and she was a Christian, and so he became a Methodist. And Bob Jones Sr. was a Methodist also. In fact, the Methodist Church was the largest denomination in American Protestantism at the time. And so I also do believe Bob Jones and other evangelical or fundamentalist movements were trying to make inroads to Taiwan at the time. So that could have been part of the reason why this happened, but it's still very strange. It's quite strange. And so, but the main source that I could find online comes from a interesting source. I talked about this probably more passionately in my first attempt at a recording, but it came from Dr. Bob Jones Sr.'s radio address on April 17th, 1960, with the Bob Jones in-house radio station. They would broadcast frequently back then, and called "Is Segregation Scriptural?" And basically this address was his attempt, along with many like him, of justifying bad theology, bad ideas with scripture, basically justifying the way that you think in your culture with Holy Scripture, and with Christianity sprinkled on top to make it okay, which is a problem. It's something that we all probably do to greater or lesser extents. But anyway, this is not about that. All that to say, this material's on the internet. It's well recorded. Basically the radio address was written down and printed for publication later. So that's how I'm getting this. But I would encourage anyone listening to give it a read. It's worthwhile. So, but he, for whatever reason, was talking about the Chinese early on into the statement, and this is what Dr. Bob Jones says about his meeting. He says, "We were over in Formosa a few years ago and conferred an honorary degree on Generalissimo Chiang Kai-Shek. And I never met a greater man. I never met a man of more intelligence or a more wonderful Christian. Madame Chiang Kai-Shek is a wonderful woman. There they are. Now what happened? They married each other. She was a Christian Chinese woman, educated in America. When she finished her education, she went back to her home in China. How God has used Generalissimo and Madame Chiang Kai-Shek not only as Christian witnesses, but also in other ways. I was never with a man who pulled me to him with stronger ties than Generalissimo Chiang Kai-Shek when I was over there and conferred an honorary degree on him. All right, he is a Chinese. He married a Chinese woman, and that is the way God meant it to be. Now, Dr. Bob goes on to take some scripture verses out of context to support foolish ideas. But that is a very key insight into this meeting with Chiang Kai-Shek. And Madam Chiang Kai-Shek also received an honorary degree from Bob Jones. Now, as we have stated, Chiang Kai-Shek and the Kuomintang left, went to Taiwan, and China was under the leadership of Chairman Mao Zedong, Premier Zhou Enlai, and the Chinese Communist Party. And, well, at least both of them could enjoy their lawn chairs and their big smiles. Thank you for listening. That about wraps it up. And there are many strange stories to be told, both about both sides of this, about Bob Jones and about the Chinese Civil War and whatnot. But this was a pleasure to do. I hope the recording came out a little bit better so I don't have to do it again. I want to go to sleep. But thank you for your attention, and I'm not sure what the next video is going to be on, but stick around and we'll find out. Have a good night.